Recording is on.
There we go. Welcome to the DXbiz call for June 13th, 2022. Welcome everyone. We have an agenda which is posted in the chat. I'll just run through it. So yeah, we don't have any new DXdao members. We have a few guests that are attending who may be interested in some of the topics we're discussing. No one is necessarily presenting, but maybe we'll get into a good discussion around some topics. One of these topics is around ETH.limo, which is something that DXdao has been leaning into more and more recently, and we have a couple of the ETH.limo team here, which is awesome to see. A few topics we can discuss there. Maybe there's a recap. John and myself a little bit have been in Austin around consensus, and there's lots of events and things happening here. Maybe some observations that we could share there. And then next week, not next week, but next week, after this week, the following week, there's a gathering of NFT NYC in New York, which will be interesting. I don't know how much of that audience is having a great time with their NFTs these days, but there's a bunch of other events like DAO focused events. There's actually 3 or maybe more DAO focused events that have kind of piggyback on the back of that. And then there's also ETH New York City, which is happening that following weekend, which looks like a interesting hackathon put on by ETH Global. And then there's an interesting idea where if Keenan was here, I was going to say we could touch briefly on this post that he put into the forum, because it has some urgency and it's an interesting discussion. And so we can, whether or not we make decisions on it, it's good for everyone to be aware of it and get the community thinking about it. And then we can maybe give an update around DX events. We have ETHCC in Paris, or Ethereum Week in Paris. And then we're also continuing discussions around this HackerSoul, DXdao's HackerSoul hackathon idea based in Bogota around DevCon. And then if we have time, some DX Ventures stuff, continued conversations. So that's the summary. I guess, to kick things off, we have Serial Saber and also Sid Mead 400, I believe, from the ETH.limo team. John and myself, we each individually got a chance to catch up with them in Austin and, talk about a bunch of the stuff that's been happening in the space, the progress that ETH.limo's made, kind of how DXdao has been leaning further and further into it. Part of that was by force, part of that is by interest. I think, ETH.link was the default piece of middleware that I guess ENS had been using and promoting from the start, but there's a lot of problems with ETH.link, obviously it not working a lot of the times, it being quite controlled and centralized by a very centralized provider in the space. And I think the ETH.limo team has come along and addressed some of those issues and has goals to address all of those issues. And one of the 3 things I listed on here, expanded use, well, Nathan, you could probably give some background on this, but getting our products using .limo and making sure that all the links to our products around the ecosystem and in things that are searched on Google, obviously getting those corrected or refined to the links that DXdao community wants is an important piece of that. So that's a lot of good manual work that Nathan's been doing it, and Swapper team and other teams. And so repositioning that's really valuable. There's some ideas around ETH.limo team, and they could probably talk to this the best, but using their technology for better analytics in an anonymous way, which is something that DXdao is interested in a lot. And then also the idea of DXdao actually supporting ETH.limo team through, they've gotten grants from different parties and things, and maybe DXdao is able to help on the financial and potentially dev side as well. So we can, if you guys from the ETH.limo team wanted to say anything, or give an overview or an update on things that you guys have been interested in, and anything else you see that DXdao might be interested in, that would be awesome to hear about.
Yeah, for sure. And it was nice to meet you and John in Austin. That was a lot of fun and unexpected, especially running into you on the streets. I'm glad I had my limo shirt on. That was pretty funny. So yeah, just I guess some quick roadmap updates and some things that might be interesting to the group here. We are pretty close to migrating over to our V2 environment. It is a major release. We've refactored a bunch of stuff. So this is mainly around kind of us pivoting to building more of a platform that we can then extend and build on top of for some of these additional features. But right now, kind of the main feature set that we're going to be rolling out here is going to be the CCIP support for ENS. So off-chain or resolvers should work. That's been tested. We'll have Skynet support. And then if you don't have a content hash record set, it'll fall back to checking if you've got a URL or GitHub or Twitter, and then we'll just redirect to that. So that's kind of cool for people that don't necessarily have D websites, but they've got some information plugged in there. So that should be helpful to other people. And we're going to have the ability here soon as well to automate the issuance of certificates. So right now it's kind of a manual process. We've got a channel in Discord that's specifically for requesting that. And right now it's a wildcard certificate, so it will cover basically any name in your subdomain, which is nice. That's going to be refactored a little bit. And if you have a content hash, I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words this morning. If you have a content hash record set, we'll check for that. And if it's valid, we'll issue you a single common name certificate for those individually. We have to talk to Let's Encrypt to actually get the rate limits increased a little bit because of the way that free service works. But that shouldn't be a problem. They're pretty friendly to other service providers. And so anyway, once we get the V2 platform out, that's when we can start building and expanding on some of the cool stuff. Primarily, analytics are going to be one of the first things that we're interested in providing. And this is likely going to be some sort of, at least initially, pretty basic, like user interface sort of thing that you can, log into, and you'll have a nice little dashboard, and you can see, basically aggregate traffic, refers, browsers, and that sort of thing, and how people are reaching the content, that sort of stuff. And it is all anonymized, so we do not log IP addresses or and that's including the client's IP, or if you maybe came through a proxy or something that was preserving the X forwarded for header, we strip that out as well. So we don't log any of that stuff. We're not interested in it. It's more of a liability than an asset. I think to everybody. So this should be we don't have the ability to single out or identify a unique user, but we can give you kind of the aggregate information. And then kind of on top of that, we're going to be deploying a public DNS over HTTPS resolver, and then probably just like a traditional DNS resolver as well. But the main intention there is to try to get integrated with Brave. So one of the ways that the ENS resolution works in Brave, if you use that, they spin up a IPFS client as a separate process, and then they basically refer to Cloudflare's DNS provider to do the ENS stuff, and that gives you a DNS link record back. and that's how it sends it to IPFS. I think a lot of you know that ETH.link's not very reliable, or Cloudflare's Ether DNS with that regard. And a few weeks ago, or I think 2 weeks ago, there was like an entire weekend where Brave native ENS resolution just didn't work. So I think that they kind of understand the need there. And hopefully we'll be able to work on that. And then Opera as well. There's some stuff that's a little different with regards to that implementation, but we're trying to figure out what that would end up looking like. But that will be cool because we'll still be able to get some metrics from that in the sense of like how many lookups. We can then start giving you a breakdown of people that are using Limo versus maybe the built-in ENS resolution in Brave. And hopefully that will be useful data, but we're very interested in basically having you guys beta test some of this and give us feedback, and potentially help with some of the development that needs to be done to build out this platform, because ultimately we do want these features to be available for pretty much any D website operator. That's not something that I think exists currently. I don't think that there's any equivalent to that with ETH.link and Google Analytics or some sort of embedded script tracking. That's kind of really the only way that you can get visibility into these D websites. And a lot of people are going to be blocking that with ad blockers and stuff anyway. So it's not necessarily 100% reliable. Whereas going through our service, there's essentially no way to avoid having those metrics be collected. Again, they're in a privacy-centric manner, but I think it's nice from that respect. And then, kind of further down the road, this is, I think something that's going to come after we at least have a beta for the analytics component rolled out, would be the ability to try to manage basically how you route content. So if any of you guys are familiar with like blue-green deployments or canary deployments, A/B testing for features, typically that's done at a load balancer or service mesh level. And that sort of thing is not really feasible in the kind of peer-to-peer world. But through our gateway, we want to explore, letting you guys basically like try out, new deployments or versions of your site prior to actually doing the IPFS deployment and then the record update. And so that way you can kind of get a sense of how something would perform. I've got, a ton of ideas around this. I'm not going to go super deep into it because a lot of it is just kind of my own, thoughts on the matter. But I think that that's, something that's interesting. In my previous Web 2 gigs, that's been the backbone of a lot of our deployment processes, just to have, that extra testing environment and things before you actually have to commit. So yeah, that's, I think, a pretty good medium-term overview of what we want to work on and work with you guys on as well. And yeah, thanks for the time to talk, and I'm happy to answer or talk about anything else that any other questions you might have.
Yeah, I'm really happy you agreed to join us. We could kind of turn this as a presentation from your side, and we could do a little Q&A. I myself have a question for you guys. What is your moat? Like, as Kai mentioned in the beginning of the call, we're now transitioning from recommending to our users to use, instead of that link, the Cloudflare's gateway to resolve the IPFS hashes, we are directing them to that limo, and we're even taking the link to change all of the backlinks to all the websites referring users to our dApps to use .limo instead. But like, what is your moat, and like, how do you hedge for competitors, and like, what's the security in the long term, like in the longevity of the .limo as a service?
Yeah, those are great questions. So, competitor, that could emerge at any point in time. I think that just from personal experience here, that for us, it's hard to convince people to give a service like that a try, especially without that kind of trust factor, and a lot of the community building that, Sid Mead's been really good at doing and interfacing with others. So it is definitely possible. And I think in some respects, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Competition, keeps you on your toes, and it is good to have, alternatives to these various services. Now, with that being said, obviously we want to be kind of the premier ENS gateway for this. And I think, one of the ways that we'll be able to at least try to stay on top of that is, through some of this kind of vision and features. And obviously, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So, we'll just have to see what ends up coming out of that. And in terms of longevity, there's a lot of interest in this. We're supporting more and more projects. We do see traffic volume kind of steadily increasing, and links on Twitter and that sort of thing. So grant funding is one of the ways that we're looking at trying to sustain this. The Ethereum Foundation has sponsored us, and they're interested in the success of this as well. And they're also interested in helping us solve a problem that we've dubbed the limo dilemma, but it's really just kind of a man in the middle type issue where how do we provide end-to-end content integrity verification for the content that you request through us, so that the client's able to determine that without having to trust us, that yes, we did in fact serve content that had not been tampered with in any way. That's kind of a big ask, and we've been working with one of our contacts at the Ethereum Foundation to try to. He does some zero knowledge stuff, and I'm not sure when we'll have a solution in place for that, but these are conversations that we are having right now. So I think that really, I guess in terms of a moat, it's really about the relationships that we have so far and the trust that we have established. And I think that will continue to pay off, especially as we're able to deliver, a better quality and more features and that sort of thing. And the other problem too is that, this is a difficult thing to monetize. And so I think that the incentive for, competitors to kind of come in and try to do something, their options are somewhat limited in terms of, you can't, if it's a public good, you can't, basically request tolls for people to use it. Otherwise, they're not going to do it at all. So I think that kind of goes a long way as well. But yeah, it's a great question. And I hope that that was a satisfactory answer.
Yeah, I assume it would require more networking and better relationship with either MetaMask, Coinbase, or Brave, even Google, Alphabet and Chrome. So yeah, I think one has to think out of the box here.
Yeah, and that's where having DNS resolution capabilities to hopefully sort of preempt or go ahead and integrate with these other browsers that may potentially have either plans for DNS resolution or they already support it now. I think that it makes sense to have multiple options. I mean, similarly, if you go in Firefox, I don't use Firefox very often, but I was in it the other day, and you go and I use NextDNS personally for DNS over HTTPS and stuff on my devices. And I was going through, I was looking at the settings, and they have a little drop down, and you've got Cloudflare's DNS or NextDNS or someone else that you can pick for the provider. But currently it's just Cloudflare DNS. That's not even configurable within Brave. So I think that would go a long way to offering those integrations with them, and hopefully that would allow us to continue to be relevant in the sense that, there's probably going to be a point in time where gateways are not necessarily going to be necessary. And so we've kind of already anticipated that and, trying to position ourselves in a way where we'll be able to kind of get in front of it.
Yeah, that's all awesome. As part of this all, obviously you've heard that there's lots of different things we can do. So the analytics is something that would be awesome to explore. This idea of content verification, and if that's like a badge or what, however that can be shown, that when you show up to swapper.eth.limo, you can be very confident in an easy, quick way that like that is not only, swapper.eth is the front end that DXdao built and deployed via proposal, but that the thing that was served through swapper.eth.limo is the same exact thing that you would see if you went to swapper.eth. And if you could easily show that to a user, that's something that people probably don't care about or don't even know about today. But like in the future with deep fakes and fake content and everything, like that is going to be required on every page, whether that's through ENS or I guess real web pages. Like you're going to want to know that the author is the actual author, or the producer of that actual front end. The DAO is actually the producer. And so if you could figure that out, we would love to experiment with that.
And then any ideas that you have too around that. I kind of view this as a collaborative effort because it's a big problem to solve. So yeah, we're more than happy to work with anybody that's interested in trying to solve that with us.
Cool. And maybe that's in hackathons or even regular bounties or something, we could find people that are interested in doing these things that help connect and bring in additional people. Because I know you guys are a small team, and obviously grants is great for funding, but we can hopefully bring in more people to help solve these things and grow everyone that's working on this for the space. Because the EF realizes this is big. We need this. Even before that, like the way that DXdao uses ENS and the fact that we're, choosing Limo to help our users use the products that DXdao and how we deploy and run those. That's like a story that, as Nathan talked about on the Hopper Twitter space last week, like for how much we tell people, like there's still basically no one in the space doing that. And eventually I think everyone will do that. So we want to continue to tell that story and of why DXdao does it and why DAOs should do that. And we can obviously tie in Limo, and our communities can be aligned, and we can promote that all together. And then all of these additional things will eventually benefit everyone that realizes this is the decentralized way to do front ends. And then we can all grow this entire thing together. So aligning with you guys that's aligning with like-minded partners, and then figuring out who else wants to get involved is part of the moat, I think, to Nathan's question about what is the moat. But we're super psyched to work closer and build this with you guys.
Hey, Sid Mead and Limo. Also echoing what Sky and Nathan said about some of the exciting things you guys are working on and being able to find alignment. Just curious if you could maybe comment or talk about how you think ENS governance fits into this. I know you've been involved in that. I've kind of been on some calls, and we have Neiman from Estroid that has been involved. So I think there's a lot of things from the Ethereum Foundation to be able to work with and be able to get some help there, but curious to know how you see like ENS governance fitting into this.
That's a really good question. We're in the .eth subgroup for this, and we do collaborate with the Estroids guys a lot. I think they're really good partners for this. In terms of ENS, one of the things that we've been trying to kind of work on or solve is that there's kind of disalignment, unalignment in terms of interest within the DAO itself. And so, we kind of see the .eth and D website stuff as really a big driver for ENS adoption and some of the value that it actually provides. And so we're trying to make that argument to them, and then get a small treasury put together for allocating bounties and to reward maintainers for some of these ENS libraries that are out there that have been neglected over the years. Really kind of the main choice that you have to work with in terms of the most feature complete and currently maintained is Ethers.js from Rick Moore. And, it's a great library, but there's some other ones out there, Python and Go and some other languages that they've been neglected and they're kind of behind. And so they're not going to support some of these newer enhancements that are being worked on actively. And so we're trying to stimulate the development side of the ecosystem in partnership with the ENS DAO. It's a little slow going. There's some death by committee stuff that's been going on. But Neiman and Easteroids have been kind of good at helping us work through some of those problems. And I think in a lot of ways, we just need to get a little more autonomy within the DAO itself in terms of how these various subgroups work with one another and how they're allocated resources, because right now it's almost like there's not really a way to easily request anything from the DAO. They seem more fixated on I would say more trivial matters, and there were some personnel shakeups within ENS recently with Brantley getting removed, and I think that was kind of a setback in terms of progress and community building. So it's really a pickle. And we're doing our best to just continue to be active and push it in a direction I think that would be beneficial to all of us. And we actually also met with the founder of Simple.eth, which is kind of like a Wix style deployment front end for simple D websites and everything like that. And they actually pin content through an API that we provided for them. But we were talking to the founder, and he was interested in kind of another working group that might help us, I guess, more closely align some of these interests. And that might be of interest to you guys. I know that you do hold some ENS tokens. I'm not sure what the process is in terms of putting those to work in terms of votes and stuff like that. But I think that given how heavily your project relies on ENS and DWeb in general, that it would be advantageous for all of us to work on that.
Yeah, and I think I agree with your assessment of ENS governance, but I guess I hopefully view it as not as dire, because I do think you guys have made a lot of progress in moving towards that vision of making .eth websites like a really important part in governance. I think it's just, as you're dealing with like a new DAO forming and all of the governance like problems that kind of come with that. And so I know that there are, I think they're just having their new elections for stewards this month, and Neiman is running for the ecosystem subgroup. I actually don't think he'll end up winning, but I think it's good that he's running. And I think a lot of what needs to happen, and I think this is what DXdao can help out in, is how to just build that coalition within ENS governance that is supporting all of the infrastructure, all of the tooling, any like grants that kind of need to be for .eth websites, because it is something that is very valuable to DXdao. I think everyone else in the community also thinks this is something very important for the rest of the community at large, and is like a part of our like decentralization core mission. So definitely I want to continue to see how DXdao can contribute to that. And I'm working on maybe figuring out how we can get those, thinking about how we can get those ENS tokens maybe to be more active in governance, in ENS governance, because I think ultimately that's the long-term play to get these things changed. Even though, like, looking at some of the comments in the chat, I think there is still a lot to be decided or filled out in the ENS DAO structure. But eventually that will get figured out in ENS's core infrastructure. So building into that, building a coalition for ENS governance, I think is also important.
Yeah, I think with kind of a grassroots campaign, it should be pretty easy to try to reach a critical mass that would be difficult to ignore, where we should be able to influence and sort of nudge things and get it back on track. And to your point, I agree. I mean, we're trying to be patient with this, and we know that it's, there are growing pains, and obviously you guys have experienced and pioneered through a lot of that, and so I'm just trying to be optimistic, not too fatalistic about it, and just persevere through it, and hopefully we'll get some of this stuff worked out.
Cool. In the chat, there's some back and forth around kind of ENS DAO and how to navigate it and how it's working currently. But that's all something, we could spend a little more time. If does anyone else want to add anything or ask anything related to this topic? Cool. Well, and I'm in the agenda mentioned article, like as DXdao is leaning in towards using limo more and more, and why we're like maybe an article like explaining to the world why we're doing that, and maybe adding some of these additional topics that we're discussing could be an interesting article to get out there, and maybe we could collab on that article, or we could write it and then cross promote it and stuff.
Yeah, that would be great. We'd love to help in any way that we can.
Cool. Great. Well, thanks for joining. You guys are welcome to hang around and see what else we're talking about. Or if you need to go, that's fine too. So next on the topic, so on the agenda, there's next week in New York, there's a we get a little echo. If you could put your if you could mute. Yeah, thanks. What was I saying? I was saying that next week in New York, there's a handful of DAO focused events. There's DAO NYC, which is organized mainly by the Tally and a few other Tally, not Tally Cash, but Tally DAO tooling Tally. And there's a bunch of speakers. There's I think they're going to have a DeFi DAO panel, which hopefully we can get on. We're not sponsoring the event, but some of these allocations are going towards people that are sponsoring it, but we may end up on one of those panels depending on what the topics are. I don't think it's fully announced what everything is, so that could be an interesting event though. And then there's also, again, the DAO Planet event that happened around ETH Denver in Denver. They're planning to do a DAO Planet New York City event that at the end of the week. And there is a potential panel called, what was it called? It's called something like What You Don't Know About DAOs. And so there's probably a lot of people that don't know a lot about the stuff that DXdao is doing. So DXdao may end up being on that panel. They also asked if there was interest in sponsorship for that event. We did not sponsor it last time, and I know that we're in this. I'm not sure we're actively looking to sponsor these events. So if there's someone that's interested and really wants to sponsor it, please kind of propose that. Otherwise, I think we're willing to support DAO events that are happening and participate in them. So other parties in the space maybe are not participating in all the DAO events, but if you are spreading the word about DAOs, I think DXdao is open to adding value and contributing and participating whenever possible, and sharing a lot of the things that DXdao does. And even if that doesn't include a sponsorship, we're happy to participate and support, unless other people have different views. And then one more last thing about kind of growing awareness of DXdao. There's a MIDAO, which is a project that Thriller in Discord, and DXdao's Discord has been working on for a while. Obviously, that's a project really focused on DAOs creating legal entities and kind of incorporating, and all of the reasons why. It's a little easier for brand new DAOs. It's probably a lot harder for existing DAOs that have already been operating without being legal entities. But sharing some of the logic and history and why DXdao is where it is and how it started, and how legal entities maybe are used in the DXdao ecosystem. And there's a recent payment facilitator proposal that was interesting. And then there's different entities and dev shops and smaller legal entities that are all contributing to the DXdao ecosystem as part of a global decentralized collective. And that's a model that is a little different than what some other DAOs in the space are deciding to do. So that's learning that, bringing that conversation into their community and and via podcast or articles and things is something that DXdao would like to share with others out there. And then we get to this post that Keenan made about staked ETH opportunity. Keenan, if you wanted to just share kind of what the goal of that is, kind of maybe the background, and just to get this idea in the minds of people so they could start thinking about it and analyzing it more. It's something that we discussed a little bit in some of the chats, but it was really around, DXdao should always be watching the markets, but we're more of an allocator than a trader. And obviously we're not DXdao has never done what like Gnosis DAO has done as a fund. That's something we're also exploring for some portion of the treasury that's more active, but then there are also slower decisions, but meaningful decisions that DXdao can make with its assets and its treasury and its risk management. And so I'd say this idea fits into that category. So it's something to explore and at least have the community aware of. And then if there's strong support, this could go to proposal or signal proposal, whether to explore further and things like that. So Keenan, if you wanted to touch on this, feel free.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, please bear with me. Didn't have a fantastic sleep last night, maybe an hour or two. So we'll try to keep this brief. You actually touched on quite a bit of it here. Let me put the thread in the chat. Cool. Yeah, so I put this thread together. We've been discussing a little bit, and I've been following the situation for a little over a week or two now. But basically, staked ETH is depegging. There's a whole bunch of reasons why. Most of all, that it's the rewards accrue directly to staked ETH, so you get more staked ETH, which is going to make it out of whack. So I have a big long post, kind of the context of why that's happening. I also go into how we can benefit from it as a DAO. And I think my personal position is that, even though it's the most centralized liquid staking solution, and we don't necessarily want to support that, it is worth noting that it is representing a great opportunity for us financially. I think that we have a lot of ETH that we do not plan on selling. As Dave, you mentioned in the forum, we're not going to be able to do anything with it or redeem it for probably 12 to even 2 years, depending on Capella. But if we do not plan on selling this ETH, I think the discount and like translation directly is actually a pretty big opportunity to get us some more ETH. So please take a look. Sorry for a bit of rambling here, trying to stay coherent, but going to bring more to the forum and kind of the discussions throughout the week. My idea is mostly that we can capitalize on a large depeg and kind of slowly build a position in staked ETH as it continues to lose its peg here.
Cool. Yeah, there were already some good questions and discussion in the forum. And yeah, if the current, if obviously there's always additional risk, but if long-term holding of ETH or staked ETH is what DXdao is going to do, and it's an opportunity at what discount, and that discount is moving around. At what discount is it worth doing this additional work, and with how much ETH to acquire that and take on additional risk, obviously. So, and John's mentioning that the current discount is trading at 6.4% discount current, or difference in peg currently. But it is a confusing product, and Dave, you've mentioned in the forum like that it's the earnings don't get restaked and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, and there's obviously concentration in Lido, like in that specific staked ETH token in the space. We've done some additional diversification to other staking platforms, like with that in mind. So it's a discussion that we should continue, and then anyone that's an expert in this continue to opine, and we can be ready. Someone mentioned leaving orders for certain discounts are achieved, and that's an interesting idea. But coming up with what those targeted discounts are and how much to do it with is something that would take some analysis. Any other thoughts people wanted to share around this potential staked ETH opportunity? If not here, feel free to bring it to the forum. Yeah,
appreciate the time, Sky. Please take a look at the thread. Any comments appreciated there, and maybe working through a draft proposal of some kind today or tomorrow.
Yeah, I do wonder also if there are obviously lots of people that could be considering this as well. I wonder if there's any DAOs that are also considering it. Maybe talking with Karpathy, or is any experts that might have different views on this, getting them involved. And then also someone had mentioned, like, if the discount, if it's really that great of a trade and the discount does happen, people that have capital theoretically should pounce on it, right? It's just a matter of, like, why aren't they doing it today? So there's, if it was that amazing of an opportunity at the current discount, then it would be, I think that the discount would go smaller, right? And so there's other factors that need to be considered.
So maybe like some thoughts. I think this is a great proposal and a great thing to discuss, especially since DXdao is sort of like long-term invested in this whole ecosystem. And I think to your question, Sky, I think the main issue here is liquidity, right? Like if you're investing in something like that, you're probably locked at the minimum for a year, probably more, because, once, maybe not a year, but let's say maybe 6 months, and then likely more, because it's going to take, like, once the merge happens and, people, like, the redeeming contract is live, there's going to be like a queue to unstake. So that's kind of like a risk that people are taking. And I think like a lot of, like, this is momentarily right now because of like the Celsius sell-off and the Celsius liabilities. But like I will, mention like more stuff in the chat, but generally, like, this is, I don't know, great thinking from Keenan, I think. Yeah,
but like with the amount of we know, well, at least from Twitter, we think there are many people out there that have money, that are long-term holders of ETH, that are big believers, and this discount exists today. And the question is, are they not buying it because they're waiting for a bigger discount, or like, why are people not taking advantage of this actual current discount today? That's a question that should be answered. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the cost of optionality, right? Like if you buy stETH, like Alan said, you might be locked in there for a year or two, and there's like greater uncertainty about that now with the recent delay, I think, as well. And I think people are also waking up to the fact. I don't know how well people understood like the timeline for the merge and stuff already, and understanding that the upgrade to actually withdraw is separate from the merge itself, and will take an additional 6 to whatever months. And also, like, if you were long ETH and wanted to lock it up, like, why didn't you do that already, right? Like, to get the yield. So I don't know. I mean, it makes sense that it trades at a discount, but yeah, I mean, it could move. It could tighten up because it, yeah, at the same time, if you are really long ETH and you're sitting on just ETH, it does make sense as like a trade with some risks. But
yeah,
yeah,
I think maybe one would be that if you are a long, if you can do this yourself, right? If you can stake ETH yourself, then, and you're a long-term holder and long-term staker, maybe you just staked yourself, right? And so if you do it through these third parties and do liquid staking, you automatically, there is additional risk, right? Like, so people have a concern that something could happen with the risk and the contracts of that additional third party system, which is another reason why you might just, if you can, stake yourself. So maybe that's where those people are that you know are never going to. There's people that are never going to sell ETH. They're going to stake it forever. They just stake it themselves.
Well, yeah, that's actually the thing that becomes the least attractive in this environment. Like, if you have 32 ETH and you want to stake it right now, like, it actually makes very little sense to take that 32 ETH, run your own validator so that you can hope you will get it in like whatever, a year and a half. It makes much more sense to take that 32 ETH and buy staked ETH, because then you'll get whatever 40 ETH or something like that because of that. So it will like absorb the market of people who want to get exposure to ETH yields and like when things will unlock. But I think, kind of to John's point, that's a trade that people have been making like for a long time, right? That's like starting November 2020. So there's a lot of people that are already long ETH there. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's clearly like a percentage or a number where it makes sense. I don't know what that is. And I do still have like some, I don't know how we should approach it. The fact that I do think there is some like centralization concerns and threat to Ethereum through Lido in general. And so I don't know how like that consideration plays into the conversation either.
Yeah, cool. We'll look forward to the continued conversation in the forum about that. And then lastly, just we have a few minutes here. Events, ETH Paris, some what's the update? Like, looks like we have a really nice venue close to ETHCC for the DXdao, well, potential planning DXdao Happy Hour, potentially or likely in tandem with Gnosis chain, maybe Gnosis ecosystem in greater ecosystem, and then also we have been discussing with Git POAP, which is like this extension of POAP focused on basically all the developers in the Web3 space and all the builders and how they are using badges which relate to your Web3 profile to build your Web3 profiles as developers in the Ethereum ecosystem and eventually greater ecosystem. And this is an infrastructure or a tool that could be expanded out to basically every repo on GitHub, which then is really interesting because every developer on GitHub has a wallet, a Web3 wallet tied to their GitHub profile, and they have badges or NFTs that have proof of contribution to communities and things. Though I believe that those communities will start to look to DAOify those communities, and that's where DXGov and the products that DXDAO is building, and maybe that's reputational based or maybe that's liquid token, but those communities will be looking for easy and awesome ways to DAOify their communities based around the project that they are working on GitHub. So that's yeah, hopefully going to come together in Paris as an awesome event that we can start inviting partners and friends and family to. And then also we are progressing on HackerSoul Bogota, and we've had a few good calls recently. I think we've put a deposit down for the venue, and we are gathering co-organizers in a plan to get this moving, get a site made, and then start promoting it to hackers out there so that they, by the end of this month or early next month, are aware of this event and have an opportunity to, when they start making plans and figuring out their acceptance to DevCon and things like that, are aware of this event and can plan it into their journeys down to Colombia during the October period. So we have a HackerSoul squad that has been forming, and if you're interested in contributing and giving opinions and things related to the HackerSoul squad, please let us know and we can bring you into that discussion. Anyone, have any additional comments on either of those DX events things? Well, cool. I guess we can sum it up there. Thanks everyone for joining the DXbiz call, and look forward to seeing you in the chats and forums.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.